What's up, you guys? Marty Schwartz here of Marty Music, my very own project, almost a year old now. Thank you for supporting. Also, when you sign my newsletter, that first comment down there will take you there. I want to give you hours worth of guitar courses, and all you have to do is sign my newsletter at Marty Music. So thanks again for that. Anyway, we're going to break down a theory lesson. We're going to use the Mixolydian mode as the context, but it's really about the theory that goes behind it, plus some cool, I think, approaches to playing some solos, stuff like that. Anyway, let's break it down. Here we go. All right, so I'm going to take a quick look at the Mixolydian mode, and we're going to pick G Mixolydian because it's derived from the C major scale. So you might know the C major scale. Also, every mode is derived from a major scale, like a parent major scale. It's called mode because you're using a different mode of that same major scale. So we're going to do G Mixolydian, but let's start with the major scale that it comes from. It comes from the C major scale. It's the fifth mode of the C major scale. So that means that if I go up the C major scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it's the fifth mode of the major scale. G Mixolydian is always the fifth mode of C major. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so you take the C major scale, and we're going to now play the fifth tone and think of that fifth tone as the home bass or the root now. The fifth tone also is the root of the 5 chord of C major, which happens to be G7 or G dominant. Mixolydian's cool because the root chord of Mixolydian is like a dominant chord, for us it'd be G7, G9, G13. So what's cool about Mixolydian is because it's over the root chord's a dominant chord, that means you also have elements of blues that you can put in there. And that's one of the cool things. Big part of Jerry Garcia's kind of vibe, but so many others. And also it just helps you understand the basics of music theory, the important music theory that will help you be a better musician. So C major scale. And that's the root again. Let me just go over the actual fingering. It's in 2 octaves. So your middle finger goes on the root here, which is the 8th fret, 8, 10. And then on the A string, 7, 8, 10. And then on the D string, 7, 9, 10. So boom, 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 ba, ba. Now to keep going, so that's the root again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 notes in the scale. And then here's C again. C, 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 do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. You know what I mean. So that's the root again of C major. So then you'd have 7, 9, 10. Then you'd have 8, 10, 7, 8, 10. But there's the root again. The 8th of the high E, just like the 8th of the low E. You can play the scale up and down the whole neck. So that also means then, if you know all the positions of the major scale, then inherently you know all the positions of every mode. You just have to kind of understand how to plug them in. So let's get back to that C major scale again. Don't worry if you're not flowing that scale. Definitely done this more than 10,000 times. I know that for a fact. But now let's look at the chords that are derived from that scale. The C root is the 1 of which is the 1 chord, C major. So. And then the 2 note is D, and that's the 2 chord's always minor. So D minor. The 3 chord is always minor as well. And so for C major, the 3 is E minor. The 4 is F major. The 5 is G7 or G9. The 6 is A minor. And then good news, the 7th tone is not really a chord that we use. It would be more the 7th tone with that 5 chord underneath it. So to complete the scale, you can play the G7 again, back to the C. So check it out. 1, C major, 2, D minor, 3, E minor, 4, F major, 5, G7, 6 is A minor, 7 is a B note, but we'll play that G7, C. So here it is a little bit without explaining it. And those are the chords that make up most popular songs. Now to turn that C major scale and think of it as Mixolydian, all we're doing is we're taking that same thing and we're just taking that G7 and thinking of that as the tonal center instead of... So we have to shift our brain now a little bit, and I'll just groove on that G7 for a minute. G7. Here's a G7 right here. So I'm going to groove that, and then now I'm going to play that C major scale that we learned. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to emphasize the G notes as home bass, as the root, instead of C. So it'd be 10th fret A string, and then it would be 8th fret B string. And so I'll just play through the scale first so you just hear what that scale sounds like. I'm going to loop a G7 chord here. All right, I added a little extra stuff to it, right? But all those chords I did, I added an F and a C, which are part of that key, but you could hear that G sounds like home bass now. So here's the scale with the G as the root. Oops, here we go. So that was kind of a square sounding approach, but I wanted you to hear the notes and how that affects it. So the next thing to add flavor to this scale is hammering on the major third of the G7 chord. It will add an element of bluesiness to it, and so that's going to be right here, which is an hammering to it, which adds this kind of country blues element to it. And we're going to use that approach as well here. And so we're hammering from 8 to 9 on the D string. And then the other spot for that is hammering or sliding from the 6 to the 7 on the high E. And if you switch your fingers to index and middle here with ring on the root G, then you get this too, where you go all the way up to the 10th of the D and then hammer back from 8 to 9. You never want to hear 9 going down to 8. You only want to hear 8 going up here, and then back up again. So I'm adding now a little more flavor, and my index and ring finger are much more, flexible, and there's more dexterity there than my pinky and ring finger. So I just switched for a second. I kind of went, ooh. That's all from the C major scale. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Each one of those notes is its own mode when you think of it as the root. But you also need the context of the chord shifting along with that. Okay, so here's two more approaches. You can visualize that scale, but we also have the major pentatonic with the blues note here. And you could also, sometimes it's called the country blues scale. I just think of it as the major pentatonic form with the blues note. So it looks like this. The root's still that G note. And this can be mixed in with the Mixolydian. So that's the root, but the scale itself is, let's see, 7/10 on the low E, 7/10 on the A, but that's the root, so that feels like home base. But here's where that same blues thing is also in the thing I taught you. So it goes like this. 7/10, 7/10, 7/8/9, 7/9, 8/10, and the blues note could be there depending on your fingering, or right here still. So two approaches give you really the same note options pretty much, but it's different ways of emphasizing notes. So you've got the C major scale approach, or really G Mixolydian. You also have the new little, just thinking of it still as that 7-note scale, but adding that little hammer-on thing. So you've got those two different approaches right there. Now, some other things that are right in the spot. The root right there, G, which is on the 8th fret. You have the whole BB box blues concepts here. Once again, I said earlier that Mixolydian is great because you can add blues elements. Even though it's not fully theoretically correct, even the G blues scale, the G minor pentatonic, will add flavors over a G7 chord, and it'll work. But the BB box is already a hybrid, so you have this whole thing here. None of the notes I just played are outside of anything we just did, but when you have your BB box tricks, it's a different sound. So you can, even though it's kind of pooling, all these devices are pooling from the same notes, when you think of it differently, okay, I'm thinking of it as the BB box, you get those sounds. Thinking about it as the 7-note, mode scale, you get some more of that Jerry sound. The country blues, all of a sudden you have a little more country, but then also just the straight G minor pentatonic blues scale, and I'll just keep it in the same position. It's not fully theoretically correct, but when you know where the certain notes work best when you're doing it, you can use it. Sorry if I'm rambling there, but the G minor pentatonic scale looks like this. With the blues notes. So 8, 9, 10, 8, 10. That's the root. 8, 10, 11, 7, 10, 8, 11. I can't sing those notes that high. Then the blues note again right here. So 8, 9, 10, and back. So to recap, we've got the full 7-note scale. You've got that same approach, but with the hammering on of the major third of that G7 chord. So BB box right here. Country blues scale. G minor pentatonic. And then messing with all those different approaches. These aren't the only approaches, but these are all kind of compacted into kind of a Mixolydian study. right, I hope that helped. Just thank you again for supporting Marty Music, and we'll see you in another video soon. Take care.
Cost close to nothing.